Assetto Corsa Rally versus the daddy of rally, Richard Burns Rally. How do these two titles compare? Have things moved forwards in 21 years? And does Richard Burns Rally still do some things better than AC Rally? That is what we're going to be looking at in this video, and honestly, the results are very surprising. Subscribe so you have the power to unsubscribe when you hear what I say and you disagree with it. Click the like button if you agree that rally drivers should stay away from helicopters. And a huge thanks to all our channel members, super chatters and Patreon members that allow us to do this content.
40. Two right. Don't cut.
First things first, keep in mind that Assetto Corsa Rally is early access. Early access, can't complain. They reckon it's going to be 12 months to 4 billion years until it's finished, so keep that in mind. And also, when it comes to Richard Burns Rally, we are using the absolutely fantastic latest Rally Sim Fans version. Download it, it's free, and it's really bloody good. Thanks to the power of modding, we also found the Hyundai in Richard Burns Rally, so we've got the same car, though the one in AC Rally is slightly newer, so it's obviously not exactly the same, but I tested a whole bunch of vehicles in AC Rally. I may have already spent 20 hours driving the press version, and of course when it comes to Richard Burns Rally, this has existed since the creation of the universe, so we're quite familiar with all the different vehicles and goings on in both simulators. So we're going to compare and attack here the physics differences, the graphics differences, and then the sort of overall experiential differences. Like, what's the actual end result and what's the enjoyment factor between these two rally simulators. Starting with the physics, rather shockingly, Richard Burns Rally, on the dirt especially, actually stacks up really well to Assetto Corsa Rally. What you will notice in terms of the handling differences though is that AC Rally is a little bit more pokey, a little bit more responsive, and the general slides that you're going to be getting the car into tend to be tighter, with the vehicle wanting to come out of slides for the most part a lot faster in Assetto Corsa Rally than in Richard Burns Rally. Interestingly though, with Richard Burns Rally, once you've got the car set up into a slide, it's a lot easier to maintain the slide and hold the angle whilst modulating that on the throttle and balancing it with the wheel than it is in AC Rally. AC Rally, the cars tend to want to be put into a power slide and then they tend to want to automatically come out of it. Richard Burns Rally, the cars want to slide for days but still be very controllable in those slides. A big difference with AC Rally and Richard Burns Rally in terms of the sort of over the limit behaviour, or the larger slip angle behaviour, is that AC Rally really has this comfortable zone of controllable slip, but if you go over it and all four wheels are over the limit effectively, even on dirt, it will really keep going in AC Rally and in an uncontrollable way, much more of a passenger slide. Whereas in Richard Burns Rally, it always feels like you actually have control over the vehicle. It's a lot easier to avoid accidentally going into a mega all four wheels have lost grip and you're sideways off into a tree slide in Richard Burns Rally. Where AC Rally absolutely destroys Richard Burns Rally though in behaviour is the suspension and how well AC Rally absorbs bumps. Big bumps, jumps, side bumps, small bumps, undulations. The car just settles down nicely, or it just rides over things as you would expect a modern, insanely designed and engineered rally car to do so. It's a really big problem in Richard Burns Rally that I don't think anyone ever managed to fix with mods. And even in the original, I remember playing some of the old stages in Richard Burns Rally, and you know, you could easily sort of buckaroo the rear of the car, and there was, you know, you'd have to just slow down really slow for certain parts of the track to avoid it. But that doesn't seem to be a problem in Assetto Corsa Rally at all. What you can also appreciate in Assetto Corsa Rally is that there seems to be just a lot more depth to the handling dynamics, the tyre behaviour, the response of the tyres to your braking and inputs. There just seems to be a lot more range to what you can do as a driver, so you then end up with a lot more complexity and a lot more nuance in AC Rally. That sounds really good, and I think that is really good from a simulation perspective, but it does also mean that it's really hard to get into the same sort of flow that you can in RBR. And keep in mind that RBR is absolutely bloody amazing. Like, at no point playing RBR, even now, am I like, oh, this isn't complex enough. And the thing is, what I would say with AC Rally, it does seem to have this issue where it's difficult to get the weight onto the front and have the front bite into corners. Whereas that's not a problem in RBR at all. Like, when you get on the brake, you can dab the front in and it hooks up really, really nicely. If you're doing downhill corners in AC Rally, or you're already into a corner a bit hot, or you've already got the tyres going a bit, then you can really struggle to get the front to hook up. And it does, to me, feel like it's a bit of a weird physics issue going on, along with those passenger slides. That's not to say that RBR doesn't have physics issues. It does. The suspension, as I say, and you can also just have the rear rotate on you at times where you probably should be able to catch it. But what I think actually happens, due to RBR's simplicity in some ways, it makes it easier to avoid those what feel like physics holes. It's easier to sort of learn and then not be annoyed by aspects of the simulator that may or may not be realistic. It doesn't really matter. Just from a gameplay perspective, you can more easily avoid those annoying things in Richard Burns Rally. Whereas in AC Rally, due to its complexity, it's a lot harder to stay away from those problematic situations. I know I'll get stick for this in the comments. I have gone through loads of setup options. We do tweak loads of settings. Because of Assetto Corsa Rally, I binge watched about 20 hours of rally videos on differentials, suspension settings, car setup. I never wanted to. I do not care about this kind of stuff. I would be one of those rich drivers that just pays for someone to do the setup and I drive. But sadly, I've been forced into setup land, and there's no way that I've been able to get around these things in AC Rally. Just seems to be how it is. In the same way the suspension and some aspects of RBR's physics are. Every simulator has its own physics quirks, and I think it just turns out the more complex the simulator, the harder it is to avoid those physics quirks. Needless to say though, all that matters is both are bloody fun to drive. I mean, you can nitpick, and at the end of the day, who cares? They are bloody fun to drive, either of them. I'm so happy to have another rally sim. RBR, Dirt Rally 1 and 2, and AC Rally. You can have a good time with any of them when it comes to the handling and driving. And they're all video games with their own things. You just need to learn them. Graphically, it's pretty apparent that AC Rally looks a bit better than Richard Burns Rally. I mean, the grass, the trees, the dirt, the modelling of the stages, it's absolutely mind-blowing. However, I'm running a 5090 and we're getting micro stutter. Doesn't matter what settings we run, what we do, you can't avoid it seems. So it's not like WRC from EA. It's not that kind of stutter. It's playable. It doesn't ruin the game, but you know, you're going to need a fast computer to run AC Rally. And it has to be said, when you're ponying it through a rally stage in Richard Burns Rally, you're so focused and dialed in on the stage and what you're doing, you don't really notice the graphics. Well, I certainly don't. I'm so focused on the driving, and the grass and the trees and the stage design in Richard Burns Rally, 21 years old, is still perfectly good. Like, the default stages are great. You know, they're good enough, I think. Obviously, you've also got mod tracks for it that are more contemporary and more detailed, and even LiDAR scanned. So, I appreciate the lighting and the shininess of AC Rally, but I think I actually prefer things to just run faster. I really hope that Kunos can improve the performance of AC Rally, but it sort of swings and roundabouts in some ways, but I think I'm going to have to somewhat hand it to Richard Burns Rally on this in terms of graphics to performance. Pop on a VR headset as well, and you really are not going to care about it not having fancy shading. You're going to be like, it's all 3D and I'm in a rally car. And again, you are focused on the driving to such a degree when you're poning it in a rally car that graphics being shiny is the last of things that you're worrying about. So ultimately, the crux of this, I think, is what's the end result, what's the end experience and the sort of joy factor. And I have to say, I think it's very close. It's really close. It's closer than I thought it would be. After having played AC Rally quite a lot to review the early access, and then jumping back into Richard Burns Rally, I was genuinely really surprised how good Richard Burns Rally stacks up to it. And the fun factor of Richard Burns Rally is a 10 out of 10. I think it is genuinely the most fun to drive racing simulator on the market. Still, factor that in with the online competitions, the mod tracks, everything else going on. It's just bloody amazing. Absolutely bloody amazing. Now, I do want to end on a positive to AC Rally, and I have to say, when you play the tarmac stages on Richard Burns Rally, it's very clear that they drive in a way more simplistic way than what you find in Assetto Corsa Rally's tarmac stages. A lot of that, I think, is due to the surface quality of the tarmac and the surface being overly smooth in Richard Burns Rally. But I just also think it really exposes the more simplistic, in some ways, nature of the tyres in Richard Burns Rally, especially the tarmac tyres. In AC Rally, there's just such a huge difference between the tyres, especially the wet tyre versus the other tyre, and the performance of them and the nuance of them is much closer in AC Rally to what you get from a track racer, or in fact, if you play the original Assetto Corsa and tarmac hill climb stuff in that, you notice that that's better than Richard Burns Rally in many ways. If you see what I mean, like there's even AC develops on the tarmac tyres compared to Richard Burns Rally. So I think things have just moved forwards in terms of tarmac tyres. Crucially though, Richard Burns Rally on the tarmac is still bloody fun, it's understandable, it's predictable, and the cars don't do stupid stuff over the limit like they do in iRacing. We've got the iRacing diss in there. It's an all-wheel drive car, it shouldn't be like iRacing. You know, but it's Richard Burns Rally on the tarmac still bloody fun as a game to play and as a simulator to play. So does it really matter? At the end of the day, I don't think it does. I think, again, the moral and the lesson of this video should be, get yourselves Richard Burns Rally. Rally Sim fans, you can download that version off their website. It's all explained. It's a little bit of a fiddle to get going and everything, but it's well worth it, even in 2025 or 2026, depending on when you're watching this. Maybe 4032 on your spaceship. You're wondering what people were doing back in the day. They were complaining about rally games. What else do you think they were doing? Solving the economy? Fixing the environment? Helping each other? Don't be silly. We're playing driving sims. But yeah, you should get RBR, Rally Sims RBR, Assetto Corsa Rally, Dirt Rally 2, and enjoy them all, because they're all good fun. You can't go wrong with grass and trees at the end of the day, and rally cars. It's the pinnacle of motorsport. Some of you are going to say that's a bloody cop-out, Gamer Muscle. You've got to pick something. I picked gliders in Microsoft Flight Sim, but what do I pick? I mean, whilst AC Rally's in early access, whilst there's little bits of stutter and whilst there's a lack of content, we're going to have to go with Richard Burns, I'm sorry. Good old Richard Burns, still going. Let me know which one you pick in the comments section. But till the next video, guys, hope you enjoyed this. We'll have to do a Dirt Rally versus AC Rally next. But until the next one, thanks for watching, happy tea drinking, take care, and goodbye.